Well, I love a good 1-2 punch album, and I always find with a good 1-2 punch album, the second album, especially after a stellar beginner, generally tends to fade or wobble a little bit, but maybe this one could be the exception to the rule. Phanerozoic 2, Mesozoic and Cenozoic, and I believe I got those ones right, by The Ocean. So The Ocean is a extreme tech death metal, progressive metal group from Germany. They have a pretty lengthy discography in terms of the kind of concept albums. They're always doing like these really big, epic, looking back to the past, and I mean like prehistoric past, to bring about this epic music. And this is the second in the whole Phanerozoic suite. Back in 2018, The Ocean put out Phanerozoic 1, Paleozoic, and Paleozoic was one of my favorite death metal albums of that year. I love how meaty and how deep and massive that thing was, and so I was very excited to have a part 2. So Phanerozoic 1 was everything before the Jurassic era. So that took all the smaller microorganisms, the first really single cell and multiple cell organisms that were kind of evolving outside of the ocean, and then we had the massive extinction that kind of happened right at the end, just before the Jurassic period. And then where that ended, this album picks up, and this album starts off basically right with the dinosaurs. And I was really excited to hear the musical suites that we would have from the Jurassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous era, because I mean, everybody goes through a dinosaur love as a kid, and I definitely had that. Everybody has their favorite dinosaur, and mine was always the T-Rex. So I love how they were able to put these tracks to music. It's Goliath in like scale. It's a juggernaut. They start off a little bit on the smaller side, but then once they start to punch, man, do these guys punch hard. The thing that I love about The Ocean, specifically with this album, is they have these chuggy guitars and they have these really beautiful riffs, but they're much more focused in on creating atmosphere and creating an environment of music, rather than these blast beats, rather than these massively chugging guitars or these massively soaring guitar riffs. Like, they're much more concentrated on creating an environment for the music to really flourish. And these two tracks, Jurassic being the first track and Jurassic and Cretaceous, is exactly that. Like, we don't have those massively soaring guitar sweeps, we don't have those guitar chugging, but what we do have is a beautiful soundscape that always ebbs and flows and has more of these smaller moments as well as these massive moments in there. And it is essentially a journey of music that your brain just kind of has to hang on to for the ride. And so even though these first two tracks are the really big tracks, I mean, Jurassic's at 8.5 minutes and Jurassic Cretaceous is at the 13 and a bit, even within their smaller moments, they're able to really manage a punch. The two shortest tracks on this, the third and fourth track of Paleocene and Eocene, I think it is, they provide, even though they're shorter in length, quite a journey anyway. Like, Paleocene just hits you right in the face with such a massive punch, and this is even with the vocal works. The guy is screaming, he's guttering, he's just like, "Brah!" But about the halfway mark, the track takes a step back and builds up the atmosphere to really make sure that you're in for a full ride, like a cohesive ride. It's not just balls to the wall and saying up here the entire time. There's a little bit of release. There's a little bit more of a mellower moment to allow you to really appreciate the wall of sound that's going on. And this release on Eocene, I think that is Eocene. It's the softest track, and it's almost like a radio-friendly track, but it's needed after so much massive music that came before it. And I appreciate the band's ability to handle these smaller moments, these more intimate moments that allow you to really appreciate and get into the atmosphere, and also kind of the things that are going around, right? Like Eocene was kind of a desolation. It was between these two massive explosions of life on our planet. And so now with Eocene, it's allowing us to kind of build itself back up before we get into the massive mammals that we had with like the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth and the giant sloths and those massive mammals that came after the Ice Age and even into the Ice Age. So I like their ability to kind of blend that essence within the music. And we come into the fifth track, and I'm going to try it. Oligocene, I think it is, Oligocene. This one continues that softer, more somber suites of music, and it almost feels like this. Something that Ulver was doing with the assassination of Julius Caesar. Kind of that more moody, more synth-led, more atmospheric style. Like it's almost like a synth wave, like a dark synth wave essence that kind of puts us through to the last three tracks that kind of bring about this more modern era within the Miocene, Paleocene. And what I appreciate is even though it's still carrying on this more mellow flow, this more somber movement, the vocal work that we find within Mesocene and Paleocene is just guttural and heart-wrenching, where even though the music around it is rather chill, I mean, it's still dark and still heavy, but not in terms of like this blast beats, in terms of like Balls to the Wall Insane. It's much more atmospheric in that sense. The singing is rather intense. The singing is that screaming, that yelling, that raging that the Ocean's really known for. And I love the harmonizations that come into the end part of this track, which really goes to show the talent work that's on here. Not only are they able to just blast you over the head with these really heavy vocal chords, they're also able to bring it back and provide such a great harmonizations with multiple singing voices on here. That mirrors the music as well. Not only are they able to handle these blast beats, but they're also able to hold these very intimate, somber moments as well. And I do kind of feel like the last two tracks, Paleocene and Heliocene, I feel like they're a little bit of a retread of some of the tracks that we had before, but again, I feel like this is the major shift. I mean, we've already shifted from that Jurassic, Cretaceous period of those, massive creatures, and now we're switching itself into some of those more smaller, more into the modern era. It's less of a bombastic, in-your-face chowdown of tracks, and much more of a somber, intimate, atmospheric tracks. And I love how it does reflect the nature. The nature is a little bit less chaotic. It's a little bit more hospitable for us. It's kind of developing itself into the modern era, the modern age. And within that blending, it's not until kind of the last little bit of Heliocene where it starts to get really massively heavy, like that menacing heaviness that we had gotten from the previous album. And I kind of like that. I like how this album's a little bit of a 1-2 punch of its own, where it starts off extremely heavy, extremely brutal, and then it finally morphs itself into this more somber, more impressionistic, a little bit more of a kind of like a synthwave drone stuff that we have. Like not quite to the point of drone metal, but it's starting to touch that. It's starting to get into that essence. So, I mean, overall, Phanerozoic 2, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic, it was a blast, and I found myself coming back to this album quite regularly with great anticipation of hearing it again. I love the journey that's going on this. I love the ebb and flow of the album. I think it works really well in depicting the different stages of our Earth and the life that's found within it. I think they did a fantastic job of blending the music with that idea. It was a great piece to listen to from start to finish as well. The only issues that I have is that I still, it's kind of the issues that I had with the first album, in that there wasn't a whole lot of like really stand out moments for me. Like there was no real handful of moments that I really enjoyed. Overall, this album is a great piece of music, but like I can't really think of any one standout moment that I loved. But I mean, I still, at the end of the day, really enjoyed my time with this one. And I would easily pick this one up in physical format. It is a great new addition to the Ocean's discography, and I also believe that this is a great addition to 2020's kind of lackluster of death metal and kind of extreme tech progressive metal in that sense. But I found myself having a blast with this album. So yeah, that's what I've got for Phanerozoic 2. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check out my podcast at Quid Pro Quo. New episode went out yesterday, so go and check it out. I subjected my friend to Pink Floyd's Adam Hart Mother, and she got me to listen to the Bay City Rollers, so that was a good time. So yeah, go check it out. It's a good time. And that's about it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.